Get your filthy hands off that rope. She waved her hand like swatting a fly.
I'd just like to add, Bandler.
Shut your mouth.
I'd like to open an account.
God, her lip curled. Bren, you people really just walk in anywhere, don't you?
I'd like to open an account.
She wants an account. They both laugh. Credit union brochure, not gutter trash begging scraps. There. That's where trash like you belongs. Where like you belongs.
The woman caught the brochure. She didn't flinch. But what Brenda didn't know was that the woman she just called trash was 45 minutes away from deciding whether this entire bank survived or disappeared. Let me take you back to the beginning. 6:30 that morning, a woman named Adrienne Powell stood in front of her bathroom mirror. She pulled her hair into a low bun. No fuss. She put on clean jeans, a white cotton blouse, and flat brown shoes. No designer logos. No jewelry except a thin gold wedding band that hadn't left her finger in 19 years. She grabbed her keys and walked out to a 5-year-old Honda Civic with a scratch on the bumper she never bothered to fix. She drove through morning traffic with the windows down. No podcast, just the city waking up. She stopped at a gas station for coffee. Not a cafe, a gas station. Black coffee, 1 sugar, 99 cents. That's who Adrienne Powell was on the outside. But let me tell you who she was underneath. Adrienne grew up in East Baltimore, the kind of neighborhood where front porches sagged and streetlights flickered more than they stayed on. Her grandmother, Lorraine Powell, cleaned office buildings for 31 years. 5 nights a week, Lorraine left the house at 9 in the evening and came home at 5 in the morning smelling like bleach and floor wax. She never complained, not once. Adrienne watched that woman her entire childhood, and she made a promise. She would build something so big that no one in her family would ever scrub someone else's floor again. She kept that promise. Adrienne Powell was the founder and CEO of Powell Capital Group, a private equity firm managing over $2 billion in assets. She had offices in Atlanta, New York, and Chicago. She sat on corporate boards. She moved markets. Right now, Powell Capital Group was in the final stage of acquiring a controlling stake in Cornerstone National Bank, a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Raymond Caldwell, the bank's regional director, had been courting Adrienne for 5 months. Phone calls, dinners, presentations. He was desperate to close. It would be the biggest transaction of his career. Today, Adrienne had a meeting with Raymond at the Whitfield Commons branch. 2 o'clock sharp. Final terms. She arrived 45 minutes early. While she waited, she figured she'd walk in and open a personal account at this branch, because it sat 3 blocks from the house where her grandmother Lorraine lived for 28 years. That was the whole reason. She wasn't testing anyone. She wasn't undercover. Just a woman who showed up early and wanted an account near a place that meant something to her. Now let me set the stage. Cornerstone National Bank, Whitfield Commons branch, an upscale suburb outside Atlanta. The parking lot was full of cars that cost more than most people's houses. The building was designed to intimidate. Polished marble floors echoing every step, brass fixtures on every door, recessed lighting making everything glow soft and golden. In the back, behind a velvet rope, the Platinum Lounge. Leather chairs, a private espresso bar, fresh flowers on a glass table, reserved for high net worth clients. People who didn't wait in lines, people greeted by first name the moment they walked in. The staff were almost entirely white. The clientele matched. There was a quiet comfort in the air, the kind that comes from everyone looking the same and never being questioned. And guarding that velvet rope like a border wall was Brenda Lawson, mid-40s, senior teller, 11 years at this branch. She didn't just work the platinum desk, she owned it. She decided who got in, not by checking balances, not by pulling records, by looking at them. One glance. That was her system. The front door opened. A woman walked in alone. No entourage, no briefcase, no designer bag. Just jeans and a cotton blouse on a Tuesday afternoon. Adrienne approached the rope. She smiled and said, "Good morning. I'd like to speak with someone at the Platinum desk about opening an investment account." Brenda looked up. Her eyes moved slow. Shoes, jeans, blouse, hair. The scan took 4 seconds. It felt like 40. And right there, before Adrian could say another word, Brenda made her decision. Now remember, you already heard what Brenda said in that opening moment. But I need to rewind just slightly, because what happened next was worse. So much worse. Brenda had her arms crossed, her chin tilted up. She looked at Adrian the way someone looks at a stain on their shoe. The Platinum Desk requires a minimum balance of $500,000, she said, and it's by referral only. She paused, let the number hang in the air. Then she smiled. So, unless you've got $500,000 hiding in those jeans, I think we're done here. Adrian didn't flinch. I understand the requirements. I'd still like to speak with someone. That's when Brenda laughed. Not a chuckle, not a polite little exhale, a full, open laugh, the kind that echoes off marble floors. She turned to her colleague behind the counter, a young blonde woman who had been watching the whole thing. "Did you hear that?" Brenda said, loud enough for half the lobby. "She wants to open a Platinum account." The colleague covered her mouth, but she was laughing too. Brenda turned back to Adrian, and this time her voice changed. Slower, louder. Each word was deliberate, like she was speaking to a child who couldn't understand basic English. "You do not qualify." She tapped the counter with each word. "Do you understand what that means? Or do I need to draw you a picture?" Adrian's face didn't move. "And what makes you so certain I don't qualify?" Brenda tilted her head. "Honey, I've worked here for 11 years. I can spot a Platinum client from across the room, and I can spot someone who wandered in from the bus stop just as fast." She reached under the counter, pulled out a brochure for a local credit union, and slid it toward Adrian. "Here, this is more your speed. They take everybody, even people like you." Adrian looked at the brochure. She didn't pick it up. Instead, she reached into her purse, pulled out her driver's license, and placed it calmly on the counter. "I'd like to start the process," she said. "Here's my ID." What happened next still makes my blood boil. Brenda looked down at the ID. She didn't pick it up. She didn't scan it. She didn't even read the name. She just stared at it like Adrian had set a dead roach on her counter. Then she held up her hand, palm flat, like a stop sign. "I don't need to see that." Her voice was ice. "I already told you. You don't belong here. I don't care what's on that little card. I've got eyes, and my eyes are telling me everything I need to know." Adrian left the ID on the counter. "I'm asking you to look at it." Brenda didn't touch it. She extended one finger, just one, and pushed the license back across the counter like it was contaminated. It slid to the edge and almost fell off. "Take it," Brenda said, "and take yourself somewhere else." The lobby was silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming above. Not a single person in that bank said a word. That's when Greg Hollis showed up. Greg was the branch floor supervisor, tall, white, mid-50s. He wore a gray suit that was a little too tight and a tie that was a little too short. He walked like a man who believed his title made him important. Brenda whispered something to him as he approached. He glanced at Adrian. Then he put on what I can only describe as the fakest smile in the state of Georgia. "Ma'am," he said, "is there something I can help you with at our standard counter? The Platinum area is reserved for select clientele." Adrian looked him in the eye. "I'm a potential investor. I'd like to open an investment account. May I sit down?" Greg's smile flickered. Surprise first, then disbelief, then something worse, amusement. Like she'd just told a joke he didn't find funny but found pathetic. "Ma'am, I'm sure you understand that we have standards here. The Platinum Desk serves clients with significant assets." He clasped his hands in front of him like a preacher. "I'd recommend starting at our regular counter. They can assess your needs and determine the appropriate level of service." Adrian held his gaze. "I have significant assets. That's why I'm asking to speak with someone qualified." The word qualified landed like a slap. Greg's smile vanished. He stepped closer. His voice dropped low enough that only Adrian could hear. "Look, I've been nice about this, but I'm done being nice. Either you walk yourself to the regular counter or you walk yourself out that door. Those are your two options. There is no third one. Adrian didn't blink. Actually, there is. I'd like to speak with your regional director. His name is Raymond Caldwell. Greg frozen. Brenda frozen. The name Raymond Caldwell hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. How did this woman in jeans and flat shoes, know the regional director's name? Greg recovered fast, but not fast enough to hide the flash of panic in his eyes. The regional director doesn't take walk-in meetings, he said. He's not available. Adrian sat down in one of the lobby chairs. She folded her hands in her lap. That's fine, she said. I'll wait. And while this was happening, while Adrian was being interrogated, mocked, and threatened, something else was happening on the other side of the lobby. Something that made everything 10 times worse. A white couple walked through the front door. Mid-60s, golf shirts. The man had a Rolex. The woman carried a handbag that cost more than a used car. A male employee saw them from across the room. He didn't wait. He walked straight to the velvet rope, unhooked it, and held it open like a doorman at a 5-star hotel. Mr. and Mrs. Calloway, welcome back, he said. He pulled out their chairs. He offered them espresso. He asked about their grandchildren. No identification, no account check, no referral, just warm smiles and first names. Adrian watched this from her chair, 15 feet away. She watched the rope open for them like a red carpet. She watched the chairs get pulled. She watched the espresso get poured. She said nothing, but her eyes saw everything. And she wasn't the only one watching. An elderly black woman walked through the front door. Her name was Denise Coleman. She was 71 years old. She wore a floral dress and carried a small handbag close to her chest. She walked up to the counter. She opened her mouth to speak. She never got the chance. Brenda didn't even look up. She just pointed one finger toward the back of the regular line. End of the line. Denise blinked. Excuse me, I just wanted to ask about... I said the end of the line. Denise closed her mouth. She turned and walked to the back of the line. Her shoulders were a little lower than when she walked in. Adrian watched the whole thing. Her jaw tightened. Her hands pressed together in her lap. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't one bad employee having a bad day. This was a system. This was how things worked in this building. And 3 seats down from Adrian, a woman named Tina Sheffield had been watching everything. Tina was a regular customer, white, mid-30s. She hadn't said a word this whole time, but her phone was in her hand, and the camera was on. She caught Brenda laughing with her colleague. She caught Greg leaning into Adrian's space. She caught the velvet rope opening for the white couple and slamming shut for Adrian. She caught Denise Coleman being dismissed without a glance. The camera caught it all. Every second. Every frame. And the people behind that counter had absolutely no idea they were being recorded. 22 minutes. That's how long Adrian Powell sat in that lobby chair. 22 minutes of absolutely nothing. No one approached her. No one offered help. No one even acknowledged she existed. Staff members walked past her like she was furniture. One teller carried a stack of files within arm's reach and didn't glance sideways. Another walked to the water cooler, filled her cup and walked back. Eyes forward, jaw set, like looking at Adrian might be contagious. She had become invisible. But the Platinum Lounge? That was a different universe. In those 22 minutes, Adrian watched 3 more white customers walk through the front door and straight into the velvet rope section. A man in a polo shirt, a woman in pearls, an older gentleman with a cane. Every single one was greeted with a smile, offered a seat, handed a menu for the espresso bar. No one asked for their ID. No one questioned their net worth. No one told them they didn't belong. Adrian sat still, hands folded, back straight. The patience in that woman was something most people would never understand. It was the patience of someone who had been underestimated so many times that waiting had become a weapon. And then Greg Hollis came back. He walked over with his hands in his pockets, casual, like he was about to comment on the weather. But his eyes were different now, harder, colder. Ma'am, he stopped in front of her chair. You've been sitting here for a while now. If you're not conducting any business, I'm going to need you to leave. We can't have people just... He paused, chose his word carefully. Loitering. Loitering. Let that word sink in. A woman sitting quietly in a bank lobby waiting to open an account, and the floor supervisor just called her a loiterer. That word, that one single word, reclassified her. She was no longer a customer being ignored. She was now a trespasser being warned. Adrian looked up at him. "I am conducting business. I told you, I want to open an account. I've been waiting to speak with someone for over 20 minutes. Greg's jaw tightened. "And I told you we can't help you here. This is the last time I'm going to ask nicely." Adrian's voice didn't waver. "Then stop asking, because I'm not leaving." Something shifted in Greg's face. The fake politeness cracked. What was underneath wasn't patience. It was rage. The rage of a man who wasn't used to hearing the word no from someone who looked like Adrian. He turned and walked back toward the counter. And that's when Brenda Lawson decided to deliver the kill shot. She walked out from behind the counter, not to her station, not to help another customer. She walked directly to where Adrian was sitting, and she spoke loud, deliberately loud. She wanted the entire lobby to hear every word. "Honey, I already explained this to you once. The Platinum Desk is for real clients, people with real money, people who actually earned their way in. Not people who showed up in Walmart clothes hoping someone would feel sorry for them." She wasn't done. She planted her hands on her hips, looked down at Adrian and said, "Every first of the month, someone like you walks in here thinking they hit the lottery. You didn't. You're not special. You're not rich. Accept it and get out." First of the month. If you don't know what that means, let me explain. The first of the month is when government assistance checks arrive. Welfare, food stamps, Social Security minimums. Brenda Lawson just stood in the middle of a bank lobby and told a black woman, in front of everyone, that she was nothing more than a welfare case who wandered into the wrong building. The lobby went dead quiet. The espresso machine in the Platinum Lounge hissed softly. The air conditioning hummed overhead, but no human being made a sound. A white man in a suit near the door looked down at his phone. Uncomfortable, but silent. A woman on the other side of the lobby shook her head. Not at Brenda, at Adrian. Like she was the problem. Like she had caused this. And then, barely above a whisper but loud enough to carry, someone muttered, "Why doesn't she just leave?" Nobody defended her. Nobody stood up. Nobody said a word. Adrian Powell sat in that chair completely and utterly alone. And that's when Greg Hollis decided to end it. He pulled out his phone. He dialed 911. He stepped a few feet away from Adrian, but he didn't lower his voice. He wanted her to hear. He wanted her to know what was coming. "Yes, I'd like to report a suspicious individual at Cornerstone National Bank, Whitfield Commons branch." His voice was calm, professional, practiced. "A woman, black female, mid-40s, has been asked to leave multiple times and is refusing to comply. She may be casing the building. I'm concerned for the safety of our customers and staff." Casing the building. He told the police, on a recorded 911 line, that a black woman sitting in a chair was planning to rob a bank. He fabricated a crime. He manufactured a threat out of thin air. And he did it without a shred of hesitation. He hung up, turned to Adrian, and smiled. "You've got about 8 minutes," he said. "Your choice." Then he turned to Dale Norris. Dale was the branch security guard, early 30s, broad shoulders. He'd been standing near the door the whole time, watching everything with a crease between his eyebrows that got deeper by the minute. Greg walked up to him and spoke quietly, but not quietly enough. "Stand by her. Don't let her move around. And if she reaches into that bag..." He paused. Let the silence fill in the rest. "You know what to do. If she reaches into her bag, you know what to do." He just implied that a woman sitting in a bank lobby might be armed, might be dangerous. That force might be necessary. Because she was black. Because she wanted to open an account. Because she refused to disappear. Dale walked over. He stood a few feet from Adrian's chair. His hands were at his sides. His jaw was tight. Everything about his body screamed he didn't want to be there. But he stood anyway, because his boss told him to. Adrian looked up at Dale. She didn't speak. She just looked at him. And in that look was something quiet and devastating. Not anger, recognition. The look of a woman who had seen this moment play out 1,000 times in 1,000 different places. 8 minutes later, 2 police officers walked through the front door. Blue uniforms, radios crackling on their shoulders. The lobby felt smaller the second they stepped inside. Greg met them before they were 3 steps in. He pointed directly at Adrian. "That's her, right there. I asked her to leave multiple times. She refused. I believe she may be scouting the location." The officers approached Adrian. One of them, tall, clean-shaven, hand near his belt, looked down at her. "Ma'am, can you stand up for me?" Adrian stood, slowly, calmly, the way a person stands when they know the whole world is watching, even if no one is helping. "Can I see some identification?" She handed them her driver's license, the same one Brenda refused to touch 30 minutes earlier. The officer looked at it, looked at her, looked at it again. "Ma'am, do you mind opening your bag for us?" Right there, in the middle of the lobby, in front of every customer, every teller, every person in that building, a public search of a black woman's handbag, in a bank, because she asked to open an account. Adrian unzipped her bag and held it open. Inside, a wallet, a phone, a folder of financial documents for her 2 o'clock meeting with Raymond Caldwell. No weapon, no threat, no crime, just a woman with a purse. Behind the counter, Brenda stood with her arms crossed and a smile stretched across her face. The smile of someone who believed she had won. She hadn't. As the officer handed back her license, Adrian's phone buzzed. The screen read, "Raymond Caldwell." She picked up. Her voice was steady, not a crack, not a tremor. "Raymond, I'm already at the branch, but before our meeting, I think you need to come down to the lobby. Right now." She hung up, placed the phone back in her bag, looked at Greg, looked at Brenda, looked at the 2 officers standing over her. "He'll be here in a few minutes." Greg snorted. "Sure he will." Brenda rolled her eyes and walked back behind her counter. 14 minutes later, the front door opened. The man who walked through that door changed everything. Raymond Caldwell, Regional Director of Cornerstone National Bank. Late 50s, silver hair combed back. A charcoal suit that fit like it was sewn onto his body. Polished black shoes that clicked on the marble with every step. This was the kind of man that made bank employees straighten their ties. The kind of man that made supervisors stand up from their desks. The kind of man whose name alone could silence a room. He stepped into the lobby and stopped. His eyes swept the scene. The 2 police officers standing in the middle of the floor, the customers frozen in their seats, the tension hanging in the air like smoke. And then he saw Adrian, standing between 2 officers, her handbag open on the chair beside her. Her driver's license is still in one officer's hand. Her face is calm. Her back was straight, surrounded, but not broken. Raymond Caldwell's face went white. Not embarrassed, not surprised, terrified. Because in that single second, he understood exactly what had happened. And he understood exactly what it meant. 5 months of phone calls, 5 months of presentations, 5 months of dinners and negotiations and carefully worded emails. All of it was about to collapse on this marble floor. He moved fast, walked directly to Adrian, past Greg Hollis without looking at him, past Brenda Lawson without a glance, past the officers like they weren't even there. He stopped in front of Adrian, extended both hands, took hers gently, and spoke in a voice loud enough for every single person in that lobby to hear. "Ms. Powell, ma'am, I am so deeply sorry. Whatever happened here, I will make it right. Ma'am." That word, that single word, detonated like a bomb. The most powerful man in the building just called the woman they dragged through the mud, ma'am, with both hands extended, with his head slightly bowed, with the kind of respect they reserve for people who own things. Every employee in the building froze. Brenda's smile vanished. She took a half-step forward from behind the counter. "Mr. Caldwell, sir, we were just handling a situation. This woman was—" Raymond turned to her. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His tone was a scalpel. "Stop talking." Brenda's mouth closed. Raymond turned to face the lobby. Staff, customers, police officers, everyone. and he spoke with the precision of a man who understood that every word he said next would either save his career or end it. This woman is Adrienne Powell. She is the founder and CEO of Powell Capital Group, a private equity firm managing over $2 billion in assets. Her firm is currently in final negotiations to acquire a controlling interest in Cornerstone National Bank. He let that settle. She is, in every way that matters, the person who will decide whether this branch and every job inside it continues to exist. Silence. Not quiet. Silence. The kind where you can hear your own heartbeat. Greg Hollis's mouth fell open. No sound came out. His face drained of color like someone had pulled a plug. Brenda Lawson's arms dropped to her sides. The smugness was gone. The crossed arms were gone. The smile was gone. What was left was the face of a woman watching her entire world crack down the middle. The two police officers looked at each other. One of them quietly closed his notepad and slid it into his pocket. The white customer who had shaken his head at Adrienne, the one who treated her like she was the problem, suddenly found his shoes very interesting. And 3 seats away, Tina Sheffield's phone was still recording, every single second. Adrienne didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She didn't raise her voice. She turned to Raymond and spoke the way she always spoke, calm, measured, and devastating. Raymond, I came here 45 minutes early because I wanted to open a personal account at this branch. This branch, because my grandmother lived 3 blocks from here for 28 years. She paused. The lobby held its breath. Instead, I was laughed at. I was told I don't belong. I was handed a credit union brochure. I was compared to someone picking up a welfare check. The police were called on me. I was accused of planning a robbery. And my bag was searched in front of everyone in this lobby. Her voice didn't crack. Because of how I look. She looked at Raymond. You spent 5 months asking me to invest in this bank. This is what I'm investing in? Raymond's face was gray. He turned to Greg and Brenda. His voice was ice. Both of you, suspended. Immediately. Leave the building. Now! Greg stepped forward. Sir, this is a misunderstanding. She never told us who she... Adrienne's voice cut through the room like a blade. I shouldn't have to. 3 words, 5 syllables, and the room went silent again. Because everyone in that lobby, every customer, every officer, every employee knew she was right. Raymond nodded to Dale Norris, the same security guard who had been ordered to stand over Adrienne like she was a criminal. The same man who was told to watch her hands, to be ready. Dale, Raymond said, please escort Mr. Hollis and Miss Lawson out of the building. Dale straightened up. He looked at Greg. He looked at Brenda. And for the first time that afternoon, he didn't hesitate. He walked them to the door. The same door they had tried to push Adrienne through. The same door they thought she'd be dragged out of in handcuffs. They walked through it instead. Heads down, silent, finished. The gatekeepers were gone, escorted out by the very guard they had used as their weapon. And the woman they called gutter trash, the woman they laughed at, humiliated, accused, and searched, stood in the middle of that marble lobby holding the future of the entire bank in her hands. Brenda Lawson didn't make it to the door before she turned around. She walked back to Adrienne. Her hands were shaking. Her face was blotched red and white. The confidence she'd been wearing all afternoon had been ripped off like a mask, and what was underneath was panic. Pure, ugly panic. Miss Powell, her voice cracked on the name. I am so sorry. I didn't know who you were. If I had known, I swear, I never would have... Adrienne looked at her. Not with anger, not with satisfaction, with something worse. Clarity. That's exactly the problem, Brenda. You shouldn't have to know who I am to treat me like a person. Brenda's eyes filled with tears. I swear I'm not racist. I treat everyone the same. I've worked here 11 years and I've never... Stop. Adrienne's voice was quiet, but it cut through everything. I sat in this lobby for over 20 minutes. In that time, I watched you greet a white couple by name and seat them without asking a single question. I watched you offer them espresso before they even sat down. And I watched you point a 71-year-old black grandmother to the back of the line before she could finish her sentence. She paused. let the silence do its work. You don't treat everyone the same, Brenda. You never have. You just never had to answer for it. Until today. Brenda opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She stood there for 3 long seconds, mouth open, tears running, hands trembling, and then she picked up her purse, turned around, and walked to the front door. 11 years at that branch. 11 years of deciding who belonged and who didn't. It all ended at that threshold. She pushed through the glass door and didn't look back. Greg Hollis tried a different approach. He didn't go to Adrian. He went to Raymond, pulled him aside near the counter, lowered his voice like he was having a private conversation between 2 men who understood how things worked. "Sir, I was following protocol. We have security procedures for situations like this. I assessed a potential threat, and I acted accordingly. That's what I was trained to do." Raymond stared at him, the kind of stare that makes a man's rehearsed speech dissolve in his mouth. "I wrote those procedures, Greg. I designed them myself. And not a single line, not one word, instructs you to call 911 and report a black woman as a potential bank robber because she wanted to open an account." Greg shifted his weight. She was being difficult. She refused to leave. I had to make a judgment call. She was sitting in a chair. Raymond's voice dropped low, dangerously low. "She was sitting in a chair in a bank that she is about to own. And you called the police and told them she was planning a robbery. That's not a judgment call, Greg. That's not a policy issue. That's a felony. You filed a false police report." The 2 officers standing nearby exchanged a look. One of them, the tall one who had asked Adrian to open her bag, stepped forward. He tapped Greg on the shoulder. "Sir, we'd like to have a separate conversation with you before you leave." Greg's face went gray. The hunter had become the hunted. He didn't say another word. He was walked to the side of the lobby by the same officers he had called to remove Adrian. Dale Norris stood by the door, waiting. When the officers finished, Dale escorted Greg out the same way he had escorted Brenda. Same door, same silence, same ending. Adrian turned to Raymond. The lobby was half empty now. Customers had quietly slipped out during the chaos. The ones who remained sat very still, watching. "Raymond, I want to be clear." Her voice carried across the marble floor. "As of right now, this acquisition is on hold. I will not sign a single document until I am satisfied that what happened today is not who this bank is." Raymond's face was pale. His hands were clasped so tight his knuckles were white. "Adrian, Ms. Powell, I will do whatever it takes. Full investigation, complete restructuring, whatever you need. Just tell me what you need." Adrian looked at him for a long moment. "What I needed was to open a bank account." She picked up her purse from the chair. "We'll start from there." That evening, Tina Sheffield sat on her couch with her phone in her hand. She watched the video one more time. All of it. The laughter, the refusal, the police, the search, the reveal. Then she uploaded it with a caption that read, "Black woman gets harassed at bank. Cops called on her. Bag searched in the lobby. Turns out she's buying the whole bank." Within 12 hours, the video had over 3 million views. Local Atlanta news picked it up by morning. By noon, it was national. CNN, MSNBC, Fox. Everyone had an opinion. The internet had already delivered its verdict before any investigation even began. And while the world was watching the video, the police department was reviewing something else. The 911 recording. Greg Hollis's voice, calm and professional, describing a suspicious black female who may be casing the building. Body cam footage from both officers showed a cooperative, calm woman being publicly searched for absolutely no reason. An internal affairs review was opened that same week. Greg Hollis was no longer just a fired bank supervisor. He was now facing a potential criminal charge for filing a false police report. The dominoes were falling, and they were just getting started. The video was just the beginning. Within 48 hours of Tina Sheffield's upload, Adrian Powell's attorney, a man named Elliot Grant, was sitting in a conference room at Powell Capital Group's Atlanta office with 6 banker's boxes of documents stacked on the table in front of him. Adrian had made one thing clear to Raymond Caldwell before she left the branch that afternoon. She wouldn't even look at the acquisition paperwork until a full, independent investigation of the Whitfield Commons branch was complete. Every record, every complaint, every email, everything. Elliot Grant's team pulled 2 years of customer service records, internal complaint logs, security camera footage, and employee communications. They went through every single file, line by line, page by page. What they found was devastating. Brenda Lawson had 16 prior complaints on file. 16, all from customers of color. The complaints ranged from being denied basic services to being spoken to with open contempt to being told to leave the branch for no stated reason. One woman wrote that Brenda had laughed in her face when she asked about a home equity loan. Another said Brenda told her she didn't look like someone who needed a savings account. 16 complaints, all documented, all filed through the proper channels, and every single one of them had been reviewed and dismissed by the same person, Greg Hollis. But the emails were worse. Elliot's team recovered Greg's internal messages going back 18 months. In one email to a colleague, Greg wrote, "Another one tried to get into Platinum today. Took care of it." In another, sent on a Friday afternoon like a joke between friends, "Gotta keep the riffraff out or this place turns into a welfare office." A welfare office. His words, in writing, on a company server. And then Denise Coleman came forward. The 71-year-old woman who had been pointed to the back of the line without a word, she saw herself on Tina's video. She recognized the lobby. She recognized Brenda's voice. And she called Elliot Grant's office the next morning. Her story was simple and heartbreaking. Over the past 2 years, she had applied for a basic account upgrade 3 separate times. Each time, she met every qualification. Each time, Brenda told her she didn't meet the criteria. No explanation, no paperwork, no appeal, just a wall. Denise wasn't the only one, but she was the first to pick up the phone. The media caught fire next. Carolyn Briggs, a primetime news anchor, ran a 12-minute segment that opened with the viral clip and then went deeper than anyone expected. "The video has now been viewed over 15 million times," she said, looking straight into the camera. But what the camera didn't capture was a pattern of racial discrimination stretching back years, buried by the very people who were supposed to prevent it. Former employees began coming forward, one after another. They described a branch that operated like a private club. If you looked right, you got in. If you didn't, you got turned away. Multiple employees said they had raised concerns internally, filed reports, talked to supervisors. Nothing happened. Ever. Because the supervisor was Greg Hollis. And Greg didn't see a problem. National civil rights organizations issued statements. The NAACP called for a federal review of lending and service practices across all Cornerstone branches. Legal analysts appeared on cable news, calling it one of the clearest cases of institutional bias in retail banking in a decade. On social media, the hashtag #PlatinumWhileBlack trended for 3 straight days. Then the legal system started moving. Brenda Lawson and Greg Hollis were formally terminated with cause. Both were reported to the Georgia State Banking Regulatory Board, which initiated proceedings to permanently bar them from the financial services industry. Not suspended, not fined, barred, for life. Greg Hollis was charged with filing a false police report, a misdemeanor under Georgia law carrying up to 12 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. His attorney immediately began negotiating a plea deal. But Greg wasn't done digging his own grave. He filed a countersuit against Cornerstone National Bank for wrongful termination. He claimed he was following procedure. He claimed he was protecting customers. He claimed he was the victim. The case was dismissed in 9 days. The judge entered the video, the 911 recording, and Greg's own emails into the record. In her ruling, she wrote that the emails constituted disturbing evidence of systemic racial animus, and that the termination was not only justified, but overdue. Brenda Lawson took a different path. She appeared on a local news station with tears streaming down her face. "I'm not racist," she said. "I was just doing my job. I treated everyone the same way." 6 of her former co-workers testified otherwise. One described watching Brenda refuse to shake a black customer's hand. Another recalled Brenda saying, out loud behind the counter, "I can always tell who's going to be a problem the second they walk in." Her credibility didn't just crack, it shattered. The bank faced a class action complaint from 12 former customers of color, 12 people who had been denied services, turned away, or treated differently at the Whitfield Commons branch over the past 2 years. Their stories matched a clear, undeniable pattern. Adrian didn't let them wait. She instructed Raymond that Powell Capital Group would settle proactively. No drawn-out court battle, no delays. Compensation totaling $1.2 million was distributed among the 12 plaintiffs within 90 days. When the investigation concluded, Adrian agreed to move forward with the acquisition, but she attached conditions, non-negotiable ones. Mandatory anti-discrimination training for every employee across every branch. Not a one-time seminar with a PowerPoint and stale coffee. Quarterly sessions with accountability metrics tied to performance reviews. Mystery shopper audits conducted by a third-party firm, specifically designed to test how customers of different races, ages, and appearances were treated at every location. A community advisory board with seats for local civil rights leaders and neighborhood representatives. Real oversight power, real authority, not a token gesture in a press release. And one more thing, a scholarship fund, named after Lorraine Powell, the grandmother who cleaned office buildings for 31 years so her granddaughter could dream bigger. Full tuition for first-generation college students from underserved communities, funded permanently by the bank's annual profits. Adrian was invited to speak at the National Banking Association's annual conference 3 months later. The ballroom was packed. She stood at the podium in a simple black dress and spoke for 11 minutes. But only one line made the news. "The most dangerous thing in a bank isn't a robbery. It's the assumption that someone doesn't belong." That clip was viewed 9 million times in a single week. Dale Norris, the security guard who hesitated, who stood by Adrian's chair with tight fists and a sick feeling in his stomach, was promoted to head of branch security for 3 Cornerstone locations. Adrian personally recommended him. She told Raymond, "That man's conscience was louder than his orders. That's the kind of person you build a company around." And Denise Coleman, the 71-year-old grandmother who had been pointed to the back of the line without a word, came back to the Whitfield Commons branch on a Wednesday morning in October. She walked through the front door. A young teller looked up and smiled. "Good morning, Mrs. Coleman. We've been expecting you." They walked her to the platinum desk, pulled out her chair, offered her espresso, called her by name. Denise sat down. She looked around the room. The same marble floors, the same brass fixtures, the same velvet rope. But everything felt different. She opened her upgraded platinum account that morning, and when the teller handed her the welcome folder with her name printed on the front, Denise Coleman pressed it against her chest and cried. Not because of the account, not because of the espresso, because it was the first time in 2 years that anyone in that building had treated her like she mattered. So where are they now? Adrian Powell completed the acquisition of Cornerstone National Bank. Every condition she demanded was implemented within 6 months. She now sits on 2 national advisory boards for financial equity. Forbes ran a profile on Powell Capital Group with a headline that said it all. "The firm that puts dignity before dividends." She still drives the Honda Civic. She still gets her coffee at the gas station. Some things don't change, and some things shouldn't. Brenda Lawson left the state. No financial institution has hired her since. Her name shows up in banking HR training programs now, not as an employee, but as a warning. A case study in what happens when prejudice goes unchecked for too long. Greg Hollis pleaded no contest to the false police report charge. He received 6 months probation and a fine. Last anyone checked, he was selling used cars at a lot off the interstate. His LinkedIn profile still says, "banking professional." Nobody's told him the irony. Dale Norris manages security for 3 Cornerstone branches. He trains every new hire the same way. First day, first hour, same speech. Your job isn't to keep people out. It's to make sure everyone feels safe coming in. He never forgot the afternoon he stood over Adrian's chair. He never wants anyone else to carry that feeling. Denise Coleman, the grandmother who was pointed to the back of the line, now volunteers on the Community Advisory Board. She reviews customer complaints personally, every single one. She told a reporter, "If I can make sure no one else goes through what I went through, then my time is worth something." The Whitfield Commons branch now holds the highest customer satisfaction rating in the entire Cornerstone network. Now let me step back from the story for a second, because there's something I need to say. This story had a happy ending. Adrian Powell had power. She had money. She had leverage. She had a meeting with the regional director already on the books. She had every card in the deck. She just hadn't played them yet. But what about the people who don't have those cards? What about Denise Coleman's? The people who walk into a bank and get pointed to the back of the line. The people who get laughed at. The people who get told they don't belong. And they don't have a billion-dollar company behind them. They don't have a Raymond Caldwell to call. They just have themselves. What happens when there's no phone call? What happens when there's no video? What happens when the woman in the lobby is just a regular person, and she still deserves to be treated with dignity? If this story hit you in the gut, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to someone who's been through it. And if you're new here, subscribe, because we tell stories like this every week. Stories where the truth comes out, where justice gets served, where the people they underestimated turn out to be the most powerful ones in the room. I'll see you in the next one. But before you go, remember this. Respect isn't something you earn by showing your bank balance. It's something every person deserves the moment they walk through the door. The real measure of any institution, a bank, a school, a company, isn't how it treats its wealthiest clients. It's how it treats the person it assumes has nothing. And the real measure of us, as people, isn't whether we notice injustice. It's whether we speak up when we see it, or whether we look down at our shoes and stay quiet. Don't be quiet.